Alcohol dependence is not simply a lack of willpower or a flaw of character. It is a deep, multi-layered process in which neurobiology, the psyche, childhood experience, genetic vulnerability, and the cultural environment in which a person was formed are tightly intertwined. Understanding this process requires an honest perspective, free from simplifications and moral judgment. When we speak about addiction, it is crucial to recognize that we are not talking about a vice, but about pain that once went unanswered. It is precisely this unhealed pain that often lies at the core of our habits, including the habit of drinking alcohol. Very often, everything begins quietly, in youth, among friends, at parties or celebrations, when alcohol feels light, harmless, and even attractive. The first glasses bring a sense of adulthood, freedom, and belonging to something grown up. Alcohol relaxes, induces euphoria, helps relieve anxiety and inattention. As ethanol is metabolized, the brain's reward system is activated, triggering a release of dopamine. This sensation of satisfaction is so pleasant that the brain quickly adapts and memorizes the connection. Feeling bad, drink, feel better. At this stage, a stable mechanism of dependence is formed. Pleasure that is instantly accessible becomes a habit. And even when it seems that everything is under control, the brain gradually adapts to an external source of dopamine, while the natural ability to experience joy from ordinary life slowly diminishes. Many people are unaware that alcohol not only temporarily reduces anxiety, but also acts as a neurotoxin. Even a single episode of drinking damages neural connections and disrupts brain functioning. Over the years, these disruptions accumulate. They may not appear immediately, but they significantly affect cognitive abilities, emotional stability, and the capacity to regulate one's reactions. Human behavior under the influence of alcohol is a mirror of the inner world. One person becomes aggressive, another starts to cry, a third withdraws into silence, and a fourth becomes excessively talkative and loud. Alcohol does not create new personality traits. It removes psychological filters and brings to the surface what a person usually keeps under control. This is why reactions to alcohol are so individual. Everything depends on emotional background, upbringing patterns, repressed trauma, and unresolved conflicts carried from childhood. It is important to understand that dependence does not always manifest as daily drinking. If a person drinks once a week, this is already a form of alcohol dependence. If more often, certainly so. Some people can abstain for months and then go on a binge lasting 1 or 2 weeks. Addiction can be periodic, socially approved, outwardly controlled, but its essence remains unchanged. It remains a deep mechanism triggered by specific emotional needs and psychological stresses. From a psychoanalytic perspective, alcohol is a form of regression. It is an escape from reality into a state of illusory safety, temporary permissiveness, and a sense of omnipotence. In this moment, a person returns to an infantile experience when the world feels overwhelming and the internal resources to cope with it are insufficient. In Freudian terms, we can recall the oral stage of development when the infant is entirely dependent on the mother and can only cry to signal discomfort. Alcohol becomes a similar cry, directed inward, a way of signaling pain to the world without having the ability to express emotions otherwise. At the core of any addiction lies basal anxiety, a deep fear of life, of others, and of oneself. This anxiety is formed in childhood, when a child encounters unreliable caregivers, emotional rejection, abuse, unpredictability, or an unsafe environment. In such conditions, insecure attachment develops, and the capacity to trust people and the world as a whole becomes impaired. In adulthood, trust is perceived as a potential threat. Alcohol becomes an object of dependence that is always available, predictable, and incapable of consciously rejecting the individual. It becomes a safe way to regulate emotions and maintain a sense of control. Alcohol also serves as a temporary narcissistic patch. It reduces feelings of inferiority, suppresses shame, fills inner emptiness, and creates an illusion of significance. In intoxication, a person allows themselves to exist, to speak, cry, feel anger, feel joy, to do what was forbidden or unsafe in childhood. Alcohol becomes a tool for experiencing life, even at the cost of health and social relationships. At a deeper level, addiction is closely linked to unconscious guilt and a drive towards self-punishment. Many people grew up without adequate support, were punished for mistakes, or left alone in moments of vulnerability. This shapes a sense of worthlessness and fundamental wrongness. Alcohol becomes a form of slow self-destruction, simultaneously numbing emotional pain and reinforcing feelings of helplessness. This is not laziness or weakness. It is the consequence of never having learned how to cope with life's difficulties or having received sufficient emotional support in childhood. Genetics plays a role, but not in the way it is often imagined. There is no single alcoholism gene. There is genetic vulnerability. For example, certain genes regulate enzymes responsible for metabolizing alcohol. In some people, alcohol causes intense nausea, headaches, and severe discomfort, effectively protecting them from addiction. In others, intoxication is mild, hangovers are easier, and the brain adapts more quickly to the reward effect. Genes also influence dopamine system functioning, receptor density, and sensitivity to reward. But genes alone do not create addiction. They only increase vulnerability, which manifests under certain conditions. The environment remains decisive. Family drinking culture, stress levels, availability of alcohol, trauma, and emotional support all shape the real likelihood of addiction. Genetic vulnerability is comparable to a weak immune system. It increases susceptibility, but does not guarantee illness. This is why two people with similar genetic backgrounds can live entirely different lives depending on upbringing and environment. We unconsciously repeat patterns familiar to us from childhood. We choose partners, friends, workplaces, and social environments based on internalized models. If alcohol was present in the family, in adulthood, we may repeat the scenario. Tolerating addiction, trying to save others, taking responsibility for someone else's life, or feeling guilt for failing to rescue them. It is crucial to abandon the illusion that we are responsible for fixing the past or saving others. Every adult is responsible first and foremost for their own life and decisions. Recovery from addiction is impossible through rescuing others. It begins with turning inward, with an honest look at one's emotions, with permission to feel them, with learning to recognize emotional states and regulate responses. It is essential to develop boundaries, protect oneself from manipulation, and leave destructive relationships. Today, in an age of accessible psychological knowledge and digital resources, help is closer than ever. We can study our reactions, receive therapeutic support, and gradually rebuild inner mechanisms without self-condemnation. Alcohol dependence is not a sentence. It is a signal of pain that was once unheard. By listening to this signal, a person can do more than simply give up alcohol. they can truly transform their life. They can learn to enjoy simple things, experience pleasure without external stimulants, build healthy relationships, and develop inner resources. They can stop being prisoners of the past and gain the ability to be alive, present, and free here and now. Every step toward awareness is a victory. Every moment in which a person chooses attention to themselves instead of escaping through alcohol is a small but meaningful triumph. Over time, these victories accumulate into a new life, one in which there is no need to seek relief through substances, where there is self-care, emotional understanding, and respect for personal boundaries. A person begins to experience the true taste of life, and addiction gradually loses its power.